Looks like I was muted. All right. Welcome into the secret sauce, folks. Today I'm talking about stocking up threads for the beginning embroidery business. The most critical consumable in embroidery is thread, but in selecting and storing and stocking up on our primary supply, we have to consider what makes the most sense for our particular setup. From fiber content and color selection to proper storage, we have to make sure we get the most for our money while properly serving our customer base. And it really hinges on curating the right collection of threads for ourselves. So let's start by following the fiber. Originally, the primary debate was all about rayon and polyester. I think that is a little bit gone by the wayside these days. We have lots of different options, but honestly, coming from a world where when I came in, rayon was the prevailing choice because of its high sheen and lower tension requirements and less stretch than polyester. Some decorators did like it, but the thing is, polyester has excellent color fastness, resistance to bleach and industrial laundering, and abrasion resistance, and it really has catapulted to the top position. If your primary clientele has any workers in food service, medicine, trades, or sport, uh, modern tri-level polyester threads have the sheen that is very similar to rayon, and honestly, is probably the way to go for most shops. Polyester is going to be all around window for your basic thread. Second, we're going to talk about a weighty subject, and really what we're talking about is the thicknesses of thread. They're measured by weights. When clients demand fine detail and tiny text regularity, you have to sometimes look beyond the standard 40 weight thread, which is common for embroidery, and the good old 7511 needle with which we do most of our work. The use of 60-weight thread and 65-9 needles is increasingly common. It makes roughly 25% thinner satin columns and line work. Despite the need for increased density and stitch count to achieve the coverage, it really is something that is particularly useful, like especially with small text. For most embroiderers, having a full stock of 60-weight colors and stitching designs entirely in 60-weight thread is unnecessary. Most run larger filled areas and less detail elements in 40-weight thread, using 60-weight thread really for these small details and especially small text alone. I would consider, if nothing else, stocking your most popular text colors like black and white. Back in the days where I was working in New Mexico, it was red and gold were also very common. And especially you're working with, like, say, fire or police, you're going to have to look at those colors. Get those colors for common text, especially starting with black and white, and leave one or two needles on each head with 65-9 needles if you infrequently use all of your needles on any given job. It really does make a huge difference, especially with small text. Next, we want to talk about curating colors. Um, Holding a threads color card and looking at the entire line can make you feel like you have to have the entire full spectrum to get started, but you really don't need to have every color with enough cones to fill every head to get started. You do need a capable selection of colors, particularly if your clients demand incredibly fast turnaround times, but you don't need to necessarily purchase the entire collection from day one or stay with a single brand, frankly. Start with a small collection of common colors. Online personalization companies often have under 20, while custom decoration companies start with many more, expanding as companies require matched colors. Aside from having light and dark variants of the main rainbow colors and neutrals, you might start with colors related to your current or potential clientele. The official colors of local schools, civic or regional kind of heraldic colors, your flags, your seals, logo colors for companies that you're going to work with or that you intend to work with. Those are all good candidates for your first color collection. Some shops also charge initial fees for companies looking to add a match color catalog, having the customer help soften the initial cost of stocking up. So you might consider putting that forward and saying, yes, you can stock additional threads. We can do color matches. We can bring things in, but add that as an extra fee, but also an extra service you're willing to do, and make it seem more of a positive stance. Next thing, while we're talking about kind of getting those thread colors for companies, I want to talk about making matches. Consistency is critical, both within thread lines and when matching samples in art. The former is based on the thread manufacturer. You want to go with recognized names in the industry or names that have really worked hard to make sure they have internal consistency. You're likely to find dye lots that match well over time. The latter is all about making the match. If we're talking about matching to art, consistent lighting is one of the big things that can help. If you don't have your own broad spectrum lighting, if you're not doing the kind of color matching already, you may literally just say, hey, I like to do my color matches outside in the daylight when I have the opportunity to do so. It does help quite a bit. Otherwise, just make sure you've got a space where your lighting is controlled so you can make the call the best way. However, I will say this, when a customer wants to be involved in that color match, the best color match is made in person with customer buy-in. Where possible, help them and help yourself by enlisting their judgment. Remember, also, any thread with high sheen, like the polyesters we're used to using, is going to have slightly different tones, different angles, and at the crown and edge of, say, a satin stitch. So though we can get color equivalencies from our vendors, live matching is the last word in keeping a customer aware of these subtleties in embroidery thread color. Next, let's talk briefly about safe storage. Though everybody loves the big thread wall display, every shop likes to have the giant display full of pegs that has all the threads on it. And I know it makes a very beautiful, compelling display to have. It can be a great tool for thread selection at design space, but it may not be the safest way to store thread depending on your environment. For our money, whenever I've worked in a shop and had to do this kind of organization, closed containers that keep out the dust and dirt and light are best to maintain thread no matter what your environment. Thread stored in windows against cold outer walls that detect moisture or without protection may suffer. If you turn over thread often enough in your embroidery areas in a clean, controlled climate, this might not matter as much to you. But threads that hang around for a long time on the wall are likely to suffer from dirt and dust on the top side, discoloration, possibly UV damage, and potentially worse. So just think about where and how long you're going to store your thread, and be kind to the thread wherever you can. Next, testing under tension. Why am I talking about testing threads under tension? This is the sad truth that many people coming into the embroidery business, especially if you're buying out in an older shop, you might be sitting there looking at that need to spend on stock, and you'll look at embroidery forums, or you're buying up thread from other people leaving the business. It can seem like an amazing savings, but you need to get your hands on the thread to know if it's even really worth that reduced amount you're going to offer folks. Whether you're testing on your own older stock or something you intend to buy, you want to spool out about 6 inches, 150 millimeters, somewhere of that of thread. Grab that in both sides of your hands and pull. If it breaks really easily, frays extensively at the break, it might be past its prime. Thread that snaps with little effort in your hands is likely to break under machine tension or encountering any resistance in the thread path. You get a nice brand new spool of thread and wrap it around both fingers, you're likely to feel the pain of it cutting into your fingers before it snaps. If it snaps really super easily, that may not be your best chance to keep your machine running over time. Don't buy old thread unless you absolutely know that it's going to hold up under tension. Uh, there's so much more to thread than these basics. I mean, we can talk about all the special cases, but that stunning array of specialties, from smooth metallics to matte finishes to thick wool to cotton blends, conductive and retroreflectives, there's a world of things that you can't cover in one session of the sauce. But that said, if you're armed with the base selection of threads that cover your most needed colors and weights, and a fiber that suits the work that you do most, you'll be well founded for anything else that you really need to do in this job, and you can expand from there. Understand you don't need to buy everything, but if you buy that core competency, you have it all ready to go, you'll be able to answer most questions quickly, and you'll be ready to run. And that's my secret sauce for today.